Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everybody. Going to talk about something today that affects many of us. And if it's not affecting you, you probably know somebody who has some challenges in this area. We're going to talk about addictions today. There's so many different types. You might be addicted to something and not even really realize it. He is a fantastic psychotherapist, helps so many people make these realizations and work through them. And he's back with us. Dr. Barry Pilson is on the program. Hi, Barry. How you doing?
Good, Steve. Thanks for having me. Enjoy being here.
Same. Always love having you here and gaining insight on things that we're all dealing with. Now, when we talk about addiction, let's boil it back to the basics. What is an addiction? How is it really defined?
Well, that's a good question, and it tends to be overused in a lot of ways. So I'm going to try to clarify some of that. In general, first of all, addiction is a relationship. It's a relationship between you and a thing or a person or a place that involves a process where you're seeking to either escape or kind of numb yourself. So therein lies some of its enticement as well as some of its difficulties. So, but I think one way to even help clarify is, a relationship with you can call it a mood altering substance or a mood altering process. Processes being like shopping or gambling or things like that. The point is that just because you connect or relate to a thing or a person that invites sort of a escape or a numbing, it's not always, oh, this is a problem. So first of all, to help clarify in terms of the process of the relationship, there's use. You might have a drink of alcohol, for instance, or some wine or something like that. That really has no consequences in your life other than a sense of, it may even give you a sense of relaxation. Mm-hmm. So there's sort of use, which, when it comes to certain things, 9 out of 10 people may use something that helps them escape or numb a little bit or just get a little bit of a peace. So there's use there. Then the second way to understand the relationship, which is a little more problematic, is there's misuse. So misuse means that there's a consequence, a negative consequence usually, from the process of using. So you're drinking and you're driving and you get into an accident. One would easily say that you are misusing the alcohol in that condition, though you can argue that either way sometimes. So misuse, it just states that there's a consequence. One of the things that when people are growing up, they're educated about the potential misuse of a substance. They're shown or they're told or they're talk about consequences. If you have your own consequence as a result of misuse, hopefully that teaches you something. Hopefully you learn from that and you take that into consideration as a way to modify your relationship with the mood altering process.
So question before we get even deeper.
Go ahead.
So, we have use, we have misuse. Are these in order of level or not?
Well, it's just a way to kind of understand the dynamic.
Okay.
You don't necessarily move from use to misuse. It's just a way, it's a description really that helps you at least categorize your relationship with the substance. Okay?
So let's go to use.
Yes.
In your description, it seems like use is probably the lowest level of something going on. I'm saying that because I don't want to use the word addiction because my question here is use. Like you said, somebody has a glass of wine every night, every other night, whatever it is, for that one reason, like you said, just want to relax, just chilling with a glass of wine. Would that be considered an addiction?
No, not necessarily. That's the point.
Okay.
If the use doesn't result in any negative consequences,
Okay.
really, when it comes down to it, if it doesn't really impact the direction well, just basically the direction of your life, then that's just what it is. It's use. Maybe you go to the track and bet on a horse, or a race. You could say you're gambling. You could say you're betting. Is that use? Yes. Is it misuse? Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
In this day and age too, where we have, lots of betting opportunities, uh, you know, you can distinguish between betting and gambling. Betting is, more of a fun activity. It kind of matches what we do anyway. We're always making bets in a sense in our lives, in terms of trying to get something accomplished, or in terms of trying to predict
Sure.
something.
Sure.
And with this massive advertising these days with sports betting, that's what they're trying to get at. They're trying to, it's not that they necessarily care about addiction necessarily, but they're trying to make the distinction that this is a bet, it's not gambling,
Got
and
it.
whether
But
you
yeah. Well,
that
that's
can
it.
open a can of worms. I
Yeah.
understand that.
And
Yeah.
honestly, I have an app. I don't do sports. The it's like buying a lottery ticket. I could walk into a convenience store and buy a lottery ticket. It's more convenient
Right.
to use the app. You fund it to your, checking, credit card, whatever. Um, I'll do that occasionally, but
Yeah.
in the back of my mind, I'm saying you're only going to spend, let's say $50 in a month. Fund it, and that's
Right.
it. Whatever happens, happens. Usually
Yeah.
nothing happens. But it's just kind of fun. But I'm always mindful of that's it. We're not doing any more because I can see
Yeah.
people get hooked on it and said, just another $50, another $100. I'm not going to do that. I set my
Yeah.
limits. I set my limits. So I guess I would have use of that app to just it's literally like buying a lottery ticket, although it's a little bit easier because you don't have to go anywhere. And they charge you, minimal, 1-2% or whatever it is, of whatever you bet, if you will. But yeah, I can
Yeah.
see
Well, the
you
game
got them.
is the marketing game is to give you access to the bet, okay, or
Yep.
give you quick access to it, so you'll utilize it. Okay, they
Of
want you to
course.
utilize the system, but it's not. It doesn't necessarily mean because you're utilizing and ideally this is their argument, in an entertaining, fun way, then there's no harm done. It
Right.
is the purpose of it is fun and enjoyment, and really, to be honest, that's what most people do. Okay. Not everybody who's in a casino is addicted. Not everybody who's in a bar who's drinking is alcoholic.
Right.
Okay. You know,
Yep.
they're just maybe using and entertaining and having fun.
Hmm.
So, those things get mixed up a little bit. So that's
Yeah.
why it's important to make that distinction.
Yep. And that's where I went to.
Now,
That's what I wanted to find out.
yeah, yeah. And let me go a little further so we can get to the addiction part.
Sure.
Um, so I said use, there's misuse, then there is abuse of a substance or a process, okay? And abuse means that you're continuing to do it despite an adverse consequence in your life, okay? So if you're let's just go with the betting, for instance. If you're continuing to bet and it's impacting your financial state, or impacting your priorities around how you want to spend money, then you could start to make the argument that you're now abusing that process, you see, because it's impacting an area of your life. Or if you're drinking and it's impacting your relationship with somebody, your spouse, a family member, a friend, your work, etc., then you could say that you're now abusing that substance. So abuse basically means that there's an impact in a significant area of your life. That's what abuse means. Um,
Hmm.
then, sort of, uh, what the next kind of category or description is addiction. So addiction can even be distinguished a little bit from abuse as well. An addiction implies that we have now adapted to the substance. And first of all, we
Hmm.
continue to use despite adverse consequences. We seek, we want the object. We want the drug. We want to gamble. We want to shop. Where our desire is now hijacked by the substance, and that is where we are driven to use it. You see, so a good way to understand that is that, in terms of somebody who's addicted, by the way, is that one, their behavior is difficult to modify. So it's difficult for them to change. It's difficult for them to give up the substance. You know, for instance, a common thing is with alcohol, especially, is a person may say, "Okay, I need to stop drinking," and they stop drinking for a little while, but they cannot stay stopped. All right, and so there's a difference between stopping and staying stopped, and that often, and it's because it's again difficult for them to modify that behavior. Um, they continue to use despite adverse consequence. There's a kind of repetitive or compulsive behavior that goes with the use. A lot of times, they'll uh, get involved in certain rituals around their use. They may go to certain places where they're going to drink or drug. They may go to certain, again, the gambling. They may go through certain processes where they go to certain places and they do certain bets in certain ways. And they kind of so it's the ritual and repetitive behavior that goes with that kind of locks them into that relationship, you see. And then the good way to really understand all that in terms of addiction is that it's like an appetite disturbance. They're wanting and they're seeking, and it's the appetite that really drives them. It's really analogous to an appetite, when you're hungry and your need for food. You're now seeking and wanting, and the hungrier you get, the more you desire or seek or want the food. And again, you might say, "Oh, I don't want to do this. Oh, I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't do this." But you also get overwhelmed by the desire. So an addiction is much more intense and much more has many more consequences than just use, misuse, and abuse. Just to
Is
be
there,
clear about that.
I want to get deeper into um, where we're heading right now, but before we go there, is there a fine line between abuse and addiction?
Yeah, well, yes and no. Okay, the abuse. You see, if there's several areas of your life that are affected by your behavior with seeking a mood altering process or substance, then you start to move into the addiction category. So maybe by use of again, in terms of betting or even in terms of alcohol or drugs, is affecting one area of my life. Then, as I continue that process, as I continue to drink or drug or to bet, now it's affecting more areas of my life. And the more areas of my life, then we can say the abuse has now gone from mild to moderate to severe. In fact, that's how the psychiatric
Hmm.
categories are around substance use disorder. Is it mild, is it moderate, or is it severe? Uh, and there's actually, to be even clear about that, in the psychiatric DSM-5, it's called, there is nothing that says addiction, okay?
Hmm.
There's, uh, yeah, it's really more of a disorder that it can be mild, moderate, or severe, like I said. So addiction is really more of an everyday term that we use but I do think it gives a good description of what's going on. And that's why it's useful to use that.
I'm kind of surprised that that's not a widely used clinical term, addiction.
Well, because it can be a little bit confusing, you see. Uh, and I think in some ways, just from a clinical aspect, where you have to delineate how the substance use or how the behavior has affected different areas of your life, it gives you a little clearer picture. addiction sort of implies that, which it is true, is that there's a social problem, there's a biological problem, there's a family problem. So it's a little bit of a kind of conglomeration of other things that doesn't always give clarity. All right. So that's the way I describe that.
What are some of the reasons that somebody would gravitate to substances or doing something that could be considered an addiction?
Yeah, well,
Look out there.
I kind of alluded to it earlier. What happens is because of the way that these substances impact the brain, what happens is we adapt to the use. Okay, and we've talked earlier in a couple of the podcasts about emotional learning and the role of stress and the role of reward. Now, you know, stress is our, when we feel either threatened or are upset about something, then we'll have a flight or fight response. Okay, we'll have a adrenaline will kind of creep in, and we'll seek to make a change, or we'll seek to try to protect ourselves in the long run. All right, now there's another system, which is the reward system. Now, the stress system is fast acting. The reward system is slower acting. Okay, that's when we set up goals, we try to achieve them. Okay, and that's slower. That's more involved. When we get to the goal, then we can get a sense of satisfaction. And okay, the reason I'm saying it like that is that basically addiction impacts more than anything the reward system. It hijacks the reward system. All these behaviors and substances, what they do is they tap into the part of the brain where dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter, is used as a means to guide our behavior. So what happens is that the substance impacts our reward centers and really leads us into a direction that is not necessarily helpful. You see, so if I'm in a primitive way seeking food, okay, and I'm foraging for it, and I'm learning where the food is produced or where it's grown, as I move towards that source of food, I'm having little dopamine hits in my brain that is telling me, okay, I'm getting closer to this, and this is I'm seeking the reward, and this is what I'm looking for. Okay, and what happens is in addiction, that whole system is now hijacked, we call it, and the wanting and the seeking and the desire is what's hijacked. So it's really what it really does is it distorts your motivational system. So your motivational system that you utilize to take care of yourself is now hijacked in a sense by the quick acting process of getting a dopamine hit, so to speak, that deviates you from constructive goals a lot of times.
So would you say that it feels good, but it isn't good for you?
Right. That's kind of what happens. That's a telltale sign. It feels good. It feels right. It's a craving. It's a want. It's a need. And you're motivated to keep going at it. But what's the outcome? Okay. And the outcome is not necessarily. What's interesting is people that have long-term issues with, I'll say it again, gambling or alcohol or drugs, don't necessarily say they love the impact that the drug or the gambling has on their brain. They're not getting a lot of pleasure out of it, if you want to know the truth. What's happening more is they're just driven to seek it. They're driven to seek it. Okay, it's not like they get a lot of, wow, this is a great experience. Uh, it might be sometimes when in the use stage. In the use stage, this is what's confusing. In the use stage, it may be aha, this is fun. Gee, I'm enjoying myself. Okay. In the addiction stage, it's okay, okay. That's what I was looking for. Okay. So it's kind of a flat, not necessarily a pleasurable response. You
So
see.
it sounds, Barry, that in the addiction stage, it's almost more of the thrill of the chase.
That's right.
It's like, for example, let's say it's alcohol. All right, so I'm going to the bar. I can't wait to go to the bar. I'm see my friends at the
Right.
bar. Yeah, you know what? We're gonna do some shots of tequila, whatever it is. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna be laughing. We're gonna have fun. But then when you've achieved it, it's just like, all right, well, I did it. Now yeah. Would you say though, at that point, you're not happy with yourself when you've achieved it in the addiction stage? I got drunk. Now I feel like garbage,
Yeah.
the day after.
Right.
But I'll be back there again tonight. Um, is that, indicative of an addiction?
Yes, it is. And that's exactly what happens a lot of times. Okay.
Wow.
Your experience of it itself is flat. The after effects is flat, you know, and then you kind of, what you do is you kind of, now here's the stressful response. So your experience is flat. Your next day you're flat. Now you're kind of stressed. Okay. And so your stress management system says, I just need to stay away from this. I need to stay away from this. Okay. What good is it doing me? What good is it doing me? And again, same with other addictions too, from shopping to, you okay. I'm gonna go. Let's do something simple like that. I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna go shop. I'm gonna buy this. I'm gonna buy that. After you buy it, there's even words for it. You have buyer's remorse. Okay, you're kind of flat. Oh wow, I thought this was gonna be great.
Mm,
Now I'm ready to return it.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I thought it would be more exciting. Here I am stuck with it. All right. But then what happens? Then,
yeah,
well, you know what? It's Prime Day, Amazon. You just forget
that's
about your
right.
purchase, and now you're off doing it again, buying more stuff.
That's
Interesting.
right. You see, so yeah, so that's the dynamic, okay? And that's the thing that so everybody, even you'll say to yourself, why do you keep doing this? Why do you keep doing this? You're not really getting much pleasure out of it. It's hurting your life, etc. You know, and the kind of the unconscious, unreasonable, irrational answer is, I don't know, but I really want it. I can't get it out of my mind. I'm thinking about it all the time, etc. Now the thrill, you said it right. The thrill is in the chase. Okay, so that's where the dopamine really uh, finds its space, so to speak. And if you think about it, it's a human adaptation. We need if it's in the chase that keeps us in a survival mode. It's in the
Mm,
chase that
mm,
makes us get what we need. Okay, all right. So if you can abstract that a little bit, the chase is wonderful, and we chase all the time. Okay, um, so the better question is you got to assess what you're chasing. Okay, and what you're really seeking. All right, and then you have to slow down and keep the way you keep the reward system intact is understand that the satisfaction is a different type of satisfaction. It's comes from the achievement of something that's of meaning to you or of value to you. Again, and we've talked about this earlier. That's why the setting of goals is really a quick, helpful process, but it's a slow process. It's a slow process. And that's why, like, for instance, with recovery from addiction, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a while, okay, before it sets in. It may take, quite honestly, depending on the severity of the addiction, it may take 1 or 2 years of abstinence from the use or misuse of a substance or a process. Then you slowly get the rewards for living like that. Then you can reflect more on that and concretely see how your life is different. And that, in and of itself, is what, in a rewarding way, keeps you locked into sobriety. Okay.
Is it about the discovery um, in the healing process? Why am I doing this? Why? What do are most people addicted? Have a connection in their mind or their mindset why they're doing it, or they don't know why they're doing it.
They don't know why. They really don't know why they're doing it, if you want to know
Mm,
the truth. Okay.
mm.
They're seeking to know why they're doing it. They think if they can come up with the answer for why they're going to do it, they'll magically stop doing it. But you see, what's happened is that their brain is now hijacked. It's rewired in a sense, and they're compulsively seeking. They're compulsively seeking. So there
Mm.
is the why doesn't matter. What matters is am I how am I going to change my relationship with that mood altering substance? That's what matters. Okay, that's what
Yeah,
matters.
even if it's something like a sex addiction,
Yes.
you've heard from people, like let's say a woman, she didn't receive tension from her dad, and that might, have set
Yeah.
her off on that path. Um,
Yeah.
or just there was no intimacy in her life, relationship, whatever it is, and it could be a man as well. Um, they don't put the two and two together.
Well, but they also think that okay, if that's the problem, I didn't get attention from my parents or my father, male or female, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Uh, then that's why I do this. Uh, it doesn't matter though. You see, it doesn't matter. What you have to do is concentrate on what part of this behavior is causing consequences in my life that are destructive. Now, so the first thing I have to do is change the behavior, period. Change the behavior. Do whatever I need to do to change the behavior. All right. What that does is it starts the process then of getting your reward system back on a better track, you see, because every time you sort of engage in the sexual addiction or shopping addiction or substance addiction, you're hijacking your brain and you're putting it on that track where you're seeking and seeking and wanting and are confused by what you're, you know, but by what the object is really doing for you. You see.
We're just about out of time. Uh, Final question: is it reasonable to think that um, people who are addicted, their reward system is skewed? So they're thinking that's the reward, whatever their addiction is. Is it reasonable to think if they can substitute that reward for something else? Let's say it's gambling. Okay, I'm broadly hypothetical.
Yeah.
Gambling, right? Well, I don't gamble anymore. I watch movies on my TV. That's what again, you swapped one for the, and I never realized how much I love watching, yeah, movies on Netflix. It's fantastic. Swapping one for another, is that reasonable to think with a lot of therapy and work, changes your reward system?
Yes, that's a help. Okay, that's a help. Now it's easy to say, oh, he's now you're just addicted to movies. Okay,
Well,
or it's a or you can say, okay, it's a system that is not as intense, not as powerful. It's more constructive. It's a help, and I have to work on that too. I can't look at 10 movies a day. You know, uh,
right.
and
Yeah.
I have to understand that rewards that are spaced out are more salient or more helpful anyway. So there's a lot of sort of intricacy to it.
Fascinating. We always hear the word addiction. We think we understand it, but not so much after hearing what you had to say today, Barry. Wow. And the difference between misuse and abuse and then rolling into addiction. What's the best way for somebody, let's say you are faced with an addiction or you think you're going down that road, maybe you know somebody is. If somebody goes to their website, this is certainly something that you help people with, right?
Yeah, and there's plenty of other resources as well.
Sure.
But my website is barrypilsonphd.com. And what I'd like to do next week is continue to talk a little bit about the healing process from addiction. Okay.
Yeah. We're like way over time today.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Okay.
but it was great having this detailed and broken down because I don't think a lot of people understand it. Definitely opened my eyes to all of us, especially the stress and reward part of it. Thank you so much for being here today, and also happy holidays to you and your family.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.